Hello, my esteemed dudes and dudettes. I'm very excited for another live coaching session here. And today I have a nice treat for you. The last 2 weeks I've covered reading, speed reading, and critical reading. And so this week we're going to switch over. We're going to stay verbal, but we're going to go into the writing and language section. And again, just to emphasize, if you're an ACT student, you definitely want to tune in today as well because the English section of the ACT and the SAT writing and language section are basically identical to each other. The SAT, when they made the new version of the test, decided to pretty much copy the ACT. So I would say that about 98% of the stuff that you learn today and that we're going to learn how to apply is going to be applicable directly to the ACT as well, now that these tests are so similar. And so today I'm going to do something similar to what I did last week. I'm going to walk you through two full passages of a writing and language section. And I'm basically going to be using the checklist. And you'll remember that you'll be able to find all the checklists for your particular test in the library. And the more you can start using these, and I really recommend before every time you do a practice section, reading the checklist and keeping it next to you, and ideally printing it out, putting it above your desk or in your book bag or wherever, so you can always look at these and get the entire big picture process down before you start. And when you're done, actually finishing up, and then once you evaluate all your right answers, your wrong answers, and look at where you could have improved, going through the checklist again and saying, oh, you know what? And what I realized was, for instance, I kind of was going too hard and I was just trying to get the right answer right away rather than realizing that I can eliminate in rounds, right? You don't want to say, oh, this is absolutely correct or this is, absolutely wrong. You can kind of say this one's bad, this one's decent, this one's bad, and then decide between choices B and C, right? Figure out which one is worse and leave the better one. So as you get this entire process, you're just going to get better and better the more you can repeat this over and over again. So be obsessed with your checklists. They are the lifeblood of your good habits and everything that you need to master to really do well on these tests minus the fine details. But today, we're going to go and get into all the fine details. So you're going to see my full process along with a bunch of extra groovy rules and tips and tricks. Now, this is going to be actually from SAT Practice Test 1, right from the College Board website. And I'm going to do the second half of a writing and language section. And I'm going to show you every single problem, 23 through 44, and exactly how I would solve it. So pay attention. And you don't need to be referencing anything else because I'm going to go right in and you're going to see everything that you need to see on screen, and it's going to be a beautiful thing. So without further ado, let's dive right in and you're going to see exactly how I tackle this section. And remember, you always want to read up to where the first question is so that you have all the context, you know the tense, you know what the passage is about, so on and so forth, so then you can get right into these specific questions. So, co-working a creative solution. When I left my office job as a website developer at a small company for a position that allowed me to work full-time from home, I thought I had it made. I gleefully traded in my suits and dress shoes for sweatpants and slippers, my frantic early morning bagged lunch packing for a leisurely midday trip to my refrigerator. The novelty of this comfortable work-from-home life, however, soon got worn off quickly. Soon got worn off quickly. So we have no change. I don't really like the sound of soon got worn off, right? That doesn't sound exactly right. I'm going to say probably bad. Was promptly worn off quickly, promptly wore off quickly, and just wore off quickly. And right here, what's funny is that these all are horrible for specific reasons. The funny thing is here, promptly, and soon, right, all are redundant because quickly means promptly, quickly means soon, and redundancy is an error. All three of these, therefore, have a specific reason why they are objectively wrong. Also remember the biggest rule of all, that long is bad and short is good. In general, the fewer words you use, the more likely something is to be correct for the simple reason that the more words you use, the more likely you are to make a grammatical error. Hence, these are wrong and this one is the best. And if you're ever really in doubt, go with the shortest answer every single time when it's something you're plugging in because it's most likely to be correct. So now I keep reading. Within a month, I found myself feeling isolated despite having frequent email and instant messaging contact with my colleagues. Having become frustrated trying to solve difficult problems, no colleagues were nearby to share ideas. All right, I'm already seeing this is a little bit of a misplaced modifier issue. Remember, anytime you have a description followed by a comma, the thing being described needs to be after the comma. So if I say, for instance, flying quickly overhead, comma, the helicopter blew us away with its speed, that's good because flying quickly overhead describes helicopter. But if you say flying quickly overhead, comma, we were blown away by the helicopter, that's wrong because we weren't flying quickly overhead, right? So this needs to be something, whoever is having become frustrated, that's what needs to be right after the comma here. So what I have is no change, no colleagues were getting frustrated, that's wrong. Colleagues, that's wrong. Ideas weren't getting frustrated, but I was getting frustrated. I missed having colleagues nearby to consult. So D is the answer here. And again, because all three of these don't fix the main error of misplaced modifier, you need to have whatever's becoming frustrated right after the comma. Only this fixes the issue. These guys are dead. All right. And 25. It was during that time that I read an article into co-working spaces. Do you read articles into stuff? I don't think so. That doesn't seem very good. Do you read articles about stuff? That doesn't sound wrong. Do you read articles upon or articles for? No, I don't read articles upon stuff. I don't read articles for fly fishing. I read articles about fly fishing. Now this one's a little bit idiomatic. And remember that the trick here is that whenever you aren't sure whether something's correct or not, you're not sure about the context, what you can do that's kind of cool is just try and say a sentence with the same setup and then fill it in yourself. So look away from the passage and in your head say, I read an article blank spiders, right? I read an article about spiders. And as soon as you're not looking at the trick answers and you're not getting your brain muddied up by the stuff they're showing you, you're pretty much automatically going to know exactly what's correct to say here, which is about. Like your brain will sort of, after, your 14 to 18 years of speaking English fluently, your brain is pretty much going to be able to fill in the blanks automatically. You might even not consciously know that about is the word you put in after I read an article, but you subconsciously know it for sure. All right, onward and upward. The article published by Forbes magazine explained that co-working spaces are design locations that for a fee individuals can use to conduct their work. The spaces are usually stocked with standard office equipment such as photocopiers, printers, and fax machines. All right, that sounded fine to me. I'll leave it as a maybe. The spaces are usually stocked with standard office equipment such as, and then a colon, such as photocopiers, printers, and fax machines. The colon here doesn't make any sense, right? Because when you're saying such as, right, you don't need the colon. A colon introduces a list. So where you would use a colon is if you said, I had stuff in my office space, colon, photocopiers, printers, and fax machines. That would work. But such as sort of acts as a colon, right? Like, I had lots of sodas in my fridge, such as Diet Coke, Coke, and Pepsi, right? The such as already introduces the list, so this is redundant here. Now, equipment such as, same error, and there's no comma. You need the comma, right? So that's doubly wrong. And then we have D, equipment such as. Okay. Now, this one just adds an unnecessary comma here. And the way that you can be sure between A and D that D is wrong is whenever you're not sure whether you should use an extra comma or not, I like to overemphasize the spaces in the commas, kind of give it a pause to see how that works. So if we read this again, here's A. The spaces are usually stocked with standard office equipment, such as photocopiers, printers, and fax machines. Sounds pretty normal. Now look at D. The spaces are usually stocked with standard office equipment, such as photocopiers. Do you see how weird that second pause is? That's why this makes no sense. It's dead. 27. In these locations, however, the spaces often include small meeting areas and larger rooms for hosting presentations. All right, immediately I see a weird thing here. Why is however there? However is supposed to be a contradiction. It goes against something said earlier. How does having small meeting areas and larger rooms for hosting presentations go against office equipment? That makes no sense. I'm automatically going to kill A, right? And then we have, in addition to equipment, the spaces often include small meeting areas and larger rooms for hosting presentations. All right, I don't see anything wrong with that. Then C, for these reasons, the spaces often include small, for what reasons, right? Because they have office equipment, they include meeting areas. This isn't causal, right? So that makes no sense. And likewise, the spaces often include small meeting areas. That makes no sense either. Likewise, remember, means kind of in the same vein. So you could say, for instance, bobcats are always hungry. Likewise, tigers have large appetites too, right? That would sort of make sense. In the same vein, in the same way, this isn't the same thing. It's saying in addition, right? Here's another fact about offices. They don't just have equipment, they have small spaces where you can have meetings. All right. And finally, 28, the writer is considering deleting the underlined sentence. Should the sentence be kept or deleted? So here it is. The cost of launching a new co-working business in the United States is estimated to be approximately $58,000. So remember, for these ones, should I keep it or should I leave it? Should it stay or should it go? The big question you want to ask yourself is, first, or the big thing you want to do first is answer on your own yes or no. Should this stay here? And my opinion here is absolutely not, because this whole thing is about stuff that co-working spaces do, are, and have. They're a place you can go for a fee and do your work. They have equipment. They have places where you can meet. And then randomly, they talk about starting your own and how much it costs. That doesn't make any sense. It's not really particularly relevant to this guy's position. He doesn't want to start one. This isn't about starting the business of a co-working space. It's about joining a co-working space. It doesn't really make any sense. So I'm going to say he should delete it, right? Now, I'm going to lean towards the delete answers right away, right? Because that's what I want to look at. So what I want to do is keep or check out the kept immediately because they're going to be easier to kill, and then analyze these answers. So first I have kept, which I already don't like because it provides a detail that supports the main topic. We already said this doesn't support the main topic. So this is super dead. All right, B, kept because it sets up the main topic of the paragraph that follows. Well, let's take a peek. The paragraph that follows is, what most caught my interest though was a quotation from someone who described co-working spaces as melting pots of creativity. Does this thing about the cost of setting up a co-working space set up melting pots of creativity? Absolutely not. That's terrible. It's dead as well. So we can kill that. Now we're on to deleted, the ones that I was leaning towards to begin with. Deleted because it blurs the paragraph's main focus with a loosely related detail. That's sort of exactly what I said. I'm not going to kill this. And D, deleted because it repeats information that's been provided. He never says anything about the cost of these things in an earlier paragraph, so we can kill D and we're left with C. And by the way, again, the reason you want to read everything up to the lines in question is so that you know everything that has been said thus far. If you hadn't read, this meat here, and you hadn't read this meat here, you might not know the main idea. You might not know the guy wants to join one of these things. You might not know that they hadn't mentioned the fact that they cost a lot of money to start, right? So that's why you always want to get this context as soon as you can and kind of read up to everything so you know everything that's going on. Everything else is terrible. C is the correct answer. All right, 29. What most caught my interest, though, was a quotation from somebody who described co-working spaces as melting pots of creativity. The article refers to a 2012 survey in which, and then here's where it gets underlined, 64% of respondents know that co-working spaces prevented them from completing tasks in a given time. And we have. At this point, the writer wants to add specific information that supports the main topic of the paragraph. Which choice most effectively completes the sentence with relevant and accurate information based on the graph above? All right. What's important to note here is they're saying that this graph is correct, right? We're being asked which of these is going to go here. Which of these sentences is going to pop in for line 29? That's sort of what we're dealing with. So we want a sentence that makes this graph true, right? So let's look at no change. 64% of respondents know that co-working spaces prevented them from completing tasks. Let's find 64. Completing tasks in a given time, positive impact. No, this would say that 64% of people said that it was better in a co-working space, that they helped them complete tasks because it's a positive impact. This is saying the exact opposite of that, saying it prevented them. So that's dead, right? We can kill A. Next up, we have 71% of respondents indicated that using a co-working space increased their creativity. 71, creativity, positive impact. That exactly backs this up. So, at this point, this is such a close match because of the numbers and everything that we could just pick it, but let's kill. Credited co-working spaces with giving them 74% of their ideas relating to business. Trick answer, right? What's funny here is that this does say, right, 74% of people said that there was a positive impact, right? Like when you go to a co-working space, you have better ideas relating to business, but it doesn't say that they credited co-working space with giving them 74% of their ideas. It's the wrong percentage. In other words, what this is saying is 74% of people said that they get better ideas because of co-working spaces, not that co-working spaces give them 74% of their ideas, right? That's the specific wrongness of that one. It's tricky, but it points to the wrong percentage, right? In terms of what the percentage reference is. It's people, not ideas. And finally, D. Respondents revealed that their ability to focus on their work improved by 12% in a co-working space. No. In fact, sort of the opposite. The only 12 I see here is that 12% of people said they were less able to focus because of a co-working space. A is dead, C is dead, D is dead, B is right, and again, just eliminate and make sure things match. And finally, we have 30. Right. The article goes on to suggest that the most valuable resources provided by co-working spaces are actually the people whom use them. Ugh. I already don't like whom. Remember that whom needs to be a direct object or needs to be directly after a preposition. So either the man whom I punched, right? The whom is getting action, or to whom am I speaking? By whom am I spanning? From whom did that information come? So I don't like A. A is already dead. Whom uses, again, I don't like whom. So it's between C and D, who and who, right? The people who use them or the people who uses them, right? Uses is singular, people is plural. People who use them, right? So C is wrong because it's singular, and we end up with D, people who use them. Onward and upward. And here we have one of these. Should he add this sentence? He's going to add it. Where does it go? Right? I like in these cases to sort of read the whole thing so I get the whole idea, and it actually makes it really easy then to toss it in. So, thus, even though I already had all the equipment I needed in my home office, I decided to try using a co-working space in my city because I was specifically interested in co-working's reported benefits related to creativity. I chose a facility that offered a bright, open work area where I wouldn't be isolated. Throughout the morning, more people appeared. Periods of quiet during which everyone worked independently were broken up occasionally with lively conversation. All right. He's finally made the plunge. He's into his co-working space. And the sentence is, after filling out a simple registration form and taking a quick tour of the facility, I took a seated table and got right to work on my laptop. Where does this go? Now, here's what's cool. I want to sort of answer this on my own in a sense really quickly, and here's what I would say. This sentence says, right, he decided to do it. And then this sentence says he wants a place with good light. And this talks about now he's actually there. So this is about him registering. So I think this should go basically after him deciding on one and before him describing his experience once he's working. I would put it here, right? And let's look at this. Before sentence one, well, that's weird because it's talking about registration and then it talks about him making the decision. No, he made the decision, then he registers. So this is dead. After sentence one, this one's a little trickier, but again, it's like this just says that he decided to do it. Then it would say he registered. Then it would say he wanted one with nice light. No, that doesn't make any sense. What it says is he wanted to do it. Then he wanted one with nice light. He found one. Then he registered, and then he's there. So this is dead. After sentence two, that's the one I already dug. And after sentence three is throughout the morning, more people appeared, then he registered, then whatever. No, that would suggest that he did a trial run for free in the morning and then registered. That makes no sense. This is dead. And sentence two is the winner after sentence two, or answer C. And again, you'll notice that what I'm trying to do here is get the full context and sort of come up on my own with where it would make the most sense based on a narrative. 99% of the time in these kinds of questions, it's a narrative issue. So, a guy decides to study butterflies, then he finds a butterfly institute, and then he meets Helen, his butterfly study partner, right? So if it says something like, Helen was very surly, right? You know that it has to go after he met Helen, right? It becomes really obvious. It's not going to say, Helen is surly, I decided to study butterflies. That's stupid, right? So even though that's sort of an oversimplified example, you see the same thing going on here. Think of it in terms of a story. Where do the beats in the story take place? All right, then we have 32. I like the experience so much that I now go to the co-working space a few times a week. Over time, I've gotten to know several of my co-working colleagues. Another website developer, graphic designer, a freelance writer, and several mobile app coders. All right, well, I like the colon, right? Colons are to introduce lists, non-full sentence lists, and that's exactly what this is. I don't hate it. This is a semicolon, right? That makes no sense here because remember, colons are for lists. Semicolons are to segregate incomplete and complete sentences, right? So after thinking for a while, semicolon, I decided to buy a car. After thinking for a while isn't a sentence. I decided to buy a car, right? So they separate incomplete and complete fragments of a sentence. That's not what is happening here. So this is dead. Then we have a comma. Look at this. Over time, I've gotten to know several of my co-working colleagues, another website developer, a graphic designer. Okay, here's the big issue. This comma makes it seem as if several of my co-working colleagues are part of the list, right? Like, over time, I've gotten to know several of my co-working colleagues, another website developer, a graphic designer, a freelance writer. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is these are my co-working colleagues. These are examples of several of his co-working colleagues. So the colon here introduces the list, whereas this sort of inaccurately states that several of my co-working colleagues are part of the general list that he's describing here. They're not part of the list. This is the list of his co-working colleagues. That's why that's wrong. To give you another example, it'd sort of be like saying, I have lots of stuff in my fridge, colon, vegetables, soda, and milk. That makes sense. But if you said, I have lots of stuff in my fridge, sodas, vegetables, and milk, that's then a list of things you have overall. And you're saying stuff in your fridge is one of the things you have. It's part of the list. That makes no sense. That's terrible, right? And finally, we have no punctuation, right? Over time, I've gotten to know several of my co-working colleagues and other website developer. That's just a run-on and is terrible and obviously wrong. So in this case, 32A is correct. And finally, 33. Even those of us who work in disparate fields are able to share advice and help each other brainstorm. All right. So that doesn't strike me as bad. I don't see why that would really be terrible at all. Then we have, even those of us who work in disparate fields are able to give some wisdom and help each other. Okay. So here's the funny thing. Give some wisdom. What does that mean, right? I mean, again, remember the shorter is better rule also, right? Like, share advice. Do you share advice with other people? Sure. Do you give some wisdom to people? I mean, when it comes to business, I don't know. Advice seems pretty bulletproof, right? You should send emails to market your services, whereas wisdom is more like, I find that a man who can't choose ends up having his choosings made for him. Right? It's too weirdly specific. It doesn't really fit, and it's longer. Right? Proclaim our opinions. We're able to proclaim our opinions. That again, it's longer, but more importantly, this isn't what you want. You don't want to go to a co-working space and have people proclaim their opinions. That's like, I think mayonnaise is gross. Right? That's not what he's there for. He's there to get good, helpful advice from other people. And opine. What's funny is that this is the classic example, by the way. Let's say you don't know what opine means. In this case, here's a really good example of if you're stuck and there's a vocab word and you don't know what it means. Does share advice work here? Is there anything wrong? A gun to your head. Even those of us who work in disparate fields are able to share advice and help each other brainstorm. What's wrong with that? I can't really think of anything. So if you can't think of anything and you don't know what this means, kill it anyway. But by the way, opine basically means to state an opinion, which is the same thing as this one. So that one is also dead. And again, by the way, another cool concept here to keep in mind is that if two answers are the same, they're both wrong, right? So you can't have two of the same correct answer. There's only one right answer. So anytime two answer choices are identical, you should kill them both because they can't both be right and hence they're both wrong. Boom, an entire passage finished. And now onward and upward to 34 to 44. So let's check this guy out. The Consolations of Philosophy. Long viewed by many as the stereotypical useless major, philosophy is now being seen by many students and prospective employers as, in fact, a very useful and practical major, offering students a host of transferable skills with relevance to the modern workplace. In broad terms, philosophy is the study of meaning and the values underlying thought and behavior. All right, I don't hate that. In broad terms basically means the overall very wide view of what philosophy is, and then it sort of says that. I don't hate A. For example, philosophy is the study of This isn't an example. This is telling you what philosophy is. For example, Taoism is a type of philosophy, right? In contrast, what contrast, right? In contrast would be, mathematics is a very useful major, right? And nevertheless, right? That also makes no sense because nevertheless is sort of like a contradiction, right? I hate cheese, nevertheless, I ordered some with my burrito, right? It's saying, even though this isn't the case, none of that works. This is saying in broad terms, and then it says what philosophy is in broad terms. That's fine. Everything else is totally wrong and dead. All right, 35. But more pragmatically, the discipline encourages students to analyze complex material, question conventional beliefs, and express thoughts in a concise manner. All right, so, but more pragmatically, in other words, but more practically, the discipline encourages students to do certain things. I don't know. I don't hate that. That seems kind of legit to me. So I don't hate it. I don't see a really big reason to change it. B, speaking in a more pragmatic way, and C, speaking in a way more pragmatically and in a more pragmatic speaking way. All right, this is a classic example of just saying the same thing incorrectly and with more words, right? More pragmatically versus speaking in a more pragmatic way. Why do we need to add speaking in? Right? Why is the word speaking even necessary? And what's funny is this is sort of tricky in that because all three of these have the word speaking in them, it almost tricks you into thinking like, oh man, should I be saying speaking? No. There's no reason to be saying speaking here. These are all stupid and longer than necessary and sound horrible. So I'm killing all of them, and A is the answer. By the way, one other quick test-taking tip. You may have noticed, if you were keeping track on a piece of paper, that 32 was A, 33 was A, 34 was A, 35 was A. And if you're thinking to yourself, oh man, that's a lot of A's, maybe I should reconsider. Never, ever, 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 ever do that. Just remember that the letters that you pick, like sometimes there are strings of 6 in a row. Just don't ever think about this. If there's 2 in a row, 3 in a row, 4 in a row, 5 in a row, you want to go through the best decision-making process possible, not pick the best letter. So if you've gone through the proper checklist and you've used all your logic and all your skills and all your deduction and you've eliminated and you get B for the 3rd time in a row, don't ever think, oh, I don't know, I said 3 B's in a row, so maybe I should pick C. No, pick the one that your logic leads you to. All right, end rant. On to 36. Because philosophy teaching students not what to think but how to not to think, the age-old discipline offers consistently useful tools for academic and professional achievement. This sounds horrible. Because philosophy teaching students, no, that sounds terrible. Because philosophy teaches students, that sounds more correct. Because philosophy to teach students, no. Because philosophy and teaching, oh God. All right, yeah, B is the only one that's not terrible, and that's really just, I'm not going to go into a whole lesson of tenses right now, but I think you can tell pretty clearly that everything else but teaches is terrible. This is just present tense. Philosophy teaches, right? Not philosophy to teach students or philosophy teaching students or philosophy and teaching students. Yuck. All right. So let's keep going. A 1994 survey concluded that only 18% of American colleges required at least one philosophy course. And this is saying which choice most effectively sets up the information that follows. And by the way, this question means like, which one of these should go here? Right? If you want to put one of these sentences in this block here, which one should you put in? Right? So I have this, by the way. So what we want to look at really quickly is this says that only 18% of American colleges required a philosophy course. So which one of these sets up the fact that very few colleges don't offer much? So we have, consequently, philosophy students have been receiving an increasing number of jobs. What does that have to do with this? I hate that. B, therefore, because of the evidence, colleges increased their offerings of philosophy? No, exactly the opposite of what we want. We want something that says that they don't, right? They have less philosophy. That's terrible. C, notwithstanding the attractiveness of this course of study, students have resisted majoring in philosophy. In 1994 concluded only 18% of American colleges required at least one philosophy course. It's not great, but does sort of go to the badness or the rarity of philosophy in colleges. And finally, we have, however, despite its many utilitarian benefits, colleges have not always supported the study. All right, this is way better. This is saying students resist majoring in it. This says colleges don't support it or don't offer it. And this says colleges don't offer it. This directly says colleges don't support it. See? Less than a fifth of schools do. This says students hate it. schools don't. That's not the deal. So D is right and C is wrong. Notice again, by the way, in my elimination method, because it sort of had to do with the negative authoring of philosophy and negative vibes, I stuck with it. I didn't immediately kill it. Because imagine if this had been like, yay, everyone loves philosophy. If this was really pro philosophy and said every college offered it, then this would be right, right? But because this is so directly pointing to the next sentence, I know I can kill this. And that's why anytime my students say to me, oh, I think that there's sort of some opinion involved here, absolutely not. You're right. If you had to look at these answers in a vacuum, then maybe this would be sort of opinion based because you could say, hey, yeah, I can see why this might be right. But compared to this is terrible. That's why, based on comparison, this whole entire section becomes objective and fact-based and mega easy, and you can just kill C and go with D. And finally, 38. All right. Colleges don't offer it. Therefore, between 92 and 96, more than 400 independent philosophy departments were eliminated from institutions. Okay, well, I'm not crazy about therefore, right? Therefore sort of says, because of this, right? I hate cheese, therefore I don't order it. Or because everyone there is tall, therefore the door frames are higher, right? There's a causality. But this is saying in 1994, very few people offered it, right? Therefore, they eliminated it. That's not causal, right? I see this more as a trend. I don't like therefore. Another thing, thus. Thus and therefore are practically the same word. Remember, if you have two of the same exact thing, both of them are wrong. I hate A and B. I think I'm going to kill both of them. Moreover means the same thing as additionally. Like, here's another related thing. I hate cheese. Moreover, I hate other fatty foods like mayonnaise too, right? And this is saying, okay, colleges don't offer it. Moreover, or additionally, a lot of them were canceling it. It's sort of related additionally. I don't hate this. However is a contradiction. This certainly isn't contradicting it. This is saying that there's a trend going on in which colleges are not offering this stuff. However is dead. It's not a contradiction. These are dead. They're the same, and it's not causal. Moreover, boom. Here's another fact about how colleges aren't offering philosophy anymore. Hiya. Onward and upward. We'll read all this beast. More recently, colleges have recognized the practicality and increasing popularity of studying philosophy and have markedly increased the number of philosophy programs offered. Good news for philosophers. By 2008, there were 817 programs, up from 765 a decade before. In addition, the number of four-year graduates in philosophy has grown 46% in a decade. Also, studies have found that those students who major in philosophy often do better than students from other majors in both verbal reasoning and analytical writing. These results can be measured by standardized test scores. Cool. All right, philosophy is good, I guess. 39. Which choice most effectively combines the sentences at the underlined portion? All right, so I'm going to read it all, right? And because there's no change here, I'm going to read them all in. All right. Studies have found that those students who major in philosophy often do better than students from other majors in both verbal reasoning and analytical writing as measured by standardized test scores. They do better in reasoning and analytical writing as measured by standardized test scores. I don't see why that's terrible. All right. Do better than students from other majors in both verbal reasoning and analytical writing. And these results can be measured by test scores. No. Okay. This is bad, not only because it's unnecessarily long, but more importantly, right, you wouldn't know these results unless you had the test scores. This is trying to say as measured by test scores. Or in other words, we know they're better at verbal reasoning and analytical writing because we've seen the test scores showing that that's the case. Not like they're better and those results can be measured. It's saying that test scores proved the point in the first place. I hate B because of that. See, writing, which can also be measured by test scores. Same error as B, which can also be measured. The only way they're measuring it is through test scores. And D, writing, when the results are measured by test scores. No, it's not saying that this is totally useless and you don't get better at verbal reasoning unless you're taking tests. No, it's saying you get better at this stuff and tests prove it, right? As proven by tests. A is the shortest, A is the best by far, all the other ones are horrendous. 40, and also they're sort of exactly the same, as you might notice if you compare them. 40. On the graduate record examination, for example, students intending to study philosophy in graduate school has scored higher than than students in all but 4 other majors. Students has scored higher? No. Students have scored higher is fine. Students scores better? Ugh. Students scoring better? No. I think this one is pretty easy. This is just singular plural agreement. Students don't scores better. Students score better, or students have scored better. All right, this is plural. This is not. And scoring is not going to happen. That's the progressive tense. Doesn't work here. All right, 41. These days, many students majoring in philosophy have no intention of becoming... Oh, God. Okay. Here's the issue here. This is an apostrophe after the T saying that it's the student, the singular student's possession, right? Like the student's backpack, right? So automatically, many students, right? That automatically doesn't work because many is plural, and then this is a singular. So many reasons why this is dead, right? These days, many students majoring in philosophy have no intention of becoming philosophers instead. Okay, that fixes it. Gets rid of the apostrophe, makes this a plural. Many students majoring, and it makes it the subject. That one looks pretty okay to me. These days, many students major in philosophy have no intention. No, right? The have no makes it wrong, right? Because it's students majoring in have no intention, not students major have no intention. See why that's wrong when you link them? This is terrible. And finally, these days, many students same error, right? Same error as A, and boom, we can go with B. Aha. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence. All right, so let's go up to that. These days, many students majoring in philosophy have no intention of becoming philosophers. Instead, they plan to apply those skills to other disciplines. Law and business specifically benefit from the complicated theoretical issues raised in the study of philosophy. But philosophy can be just as useful in engineering or any field requiring complex analytic skills. All right. At this point, the writer is considering adding this. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato, for example, wrote many of his works in the form of dialogues. Oh, God. Okay, yeah. Not very good. What does Plato writing his work in the form of dialogues have to do with anything? So, should the writer make his addition here? I'm going to go with no, right? So, which means I'm going to start with these guys because they already are on the chopping block just for being yeses, right? Yes, because it reinforces the passage's main point about the employability of philosophy majors. What is Plato writing his works in the form of dialogues? How does that reinforce anything that they've said earlier? That's terrible. Because it acknowledges a common counter argument. Yes, many people say you're wrong because Plato wrote his works in dialogues. Ugh, terrible. All right, now we're on to the ones that I liked because they're no's. No, because it blurs the paragraph's focus by introducing a new idea that goes unexplained. That's exactly what I said. And D, no, because it undermines the passage's claim about the employee. No, it doesn't undermine anything. It just has nothing to do with anything. So D is wrong, C is right. Onward and upward. That these skills are transferable across professions, which makes them especially beneficial to 21st century students. What? That these skills are transferable across professions, which makes them... Which just sounds really bad and weird there. I want to kill it right away, and I'm not sure why. I don't even know what I would replace which with here. Okay, so then... That these skills are transferable across professions, that makes them, especially, I don't know. That these skills are transferable across professions delete the underlined portion. Boom. Okay, you notice how I can't even really read this all the way? That these skills are transferable across professions, which makes them especially, that makes them especially, and makes them especially beneficial. I hate all of them. But now just delete it and read this. That these skills are transferable across professions makes them especially beneficial to 21st century students. So much nicer. These are all terrible, mostly because there shouldn't be any word there at all. So never forget the delete idea. And it was funny. You notice how I didn't really cross them out? I just sort of said maybe, but I don't like them. And then finally got to this. And it was obviously the itch that my brain needed to scratch. All of these are wrong because nothing should go here at all. And last but not least, because today's students can expect to hold multiple jobs, some of which may not even exist yet, during our lifetime, studying philosophy allows them to be flexible and adaptable. All right, R. Who is we? I guess the reader? It's not the worst, but I don't like it. During one's lifetime? No, one's is terrible, right? One's is this random singular. We're talking about Students, that's the subject, right? Ones just completely breaks. His or her, no. Students is plural. So it should be there if you're matching the students and there. Okay. So here's the funny thing. You could make the argument are during our lifetime, in other words, like during our lifetime as readers, but has he ever mentioned us before? Right? Saying like, we need to study philosophy. No, he's never done that before. And more importantly, right? Elimination. If this was in a vacuum, you could say, oh, come on, R means the reader, but it's not in a vacuum, right? We want to match. And we can either say R, the random hypothetical we, the reader, that the guy has decided to reference for the first time ever, even though he's never done it before. That stinks. Or there. Students can expect multiple jobs, some of which may not even exist yet, during their lifetime. Boom. That matches. It's good subject object agreement, and you don't have to worry about random hypotheticals. So A is dead, and D is the answer. So I hope that you found this useful today. As you'll see, what's funny is that even though I was explaining everything, talking out loud, so on and so forth, this didn't take very long. It actually is still just such a quick process. You'll also notice that at no point, like maybe on 2 of those, I sort of had a debate with myself. But for the most part, by using comparison, by just eliminating, comparing, eliminating, rather than trying to say, is A correct right up front, is B correct, is C correct, is D correct, just killing, maybeing, leaving things alone, and then going in rounds and comparing things and killing them based on which one is most wrong, you're never going to deal with any confusion again. And sure, I'm, more boned up on all of the grammar rules than you, so on and so forth, but there's not that many grammar rules to learn. And more importantly, you already speak fluent English. You already know how to do all this stuff. So if you just compare, you use some of these tricks and you eliminate rather than picking, you're going to do awesome. So for today, what I would love you to do if you have the time is before you even go to sleep, see if you can go through just 2 passages, check out the checklist first, read the whole thing, print it out, look at it, watch my video, and then go through this on your own and obsess over the concept of elimination, of picking shorter answers because they're clearer, right? And of doing everything I did in this video. And very quickly, the ACT and SAT writing and language sections or English sections are going to be an absolute walk in the park. I hope you enjoyed today's session. I know I did. I got a ridiculous amount of feedback from the reading one, basically saying that everyone loved just watching me go through and seeing the whole process all at once. So next week, you can expect me to do this for some math, which would be fun as well. But for now, why don't you dive into your writing and language, dive in your English, practice what you just saw, and I am going to see you next week with some brand new gloriousness that you can take to the math section. So thank you so much for tuning in. Good luck with your prep, and I'm going to see you all next week. Have a beautiful evening.